I highly doubt we're going to come to a consensus on this topic today, guys. But nonetheless, I do feel like it is time we had a discussion about Miles Sanders in the Philadelphia Eagles running game. Let's jump into it, y'all. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gay City Sports Channel. Hey, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you are new to the channel, this is maybe the first time you caught my content. We just crossed over 6,000 subscribers. We're heading towards 7,500 subscribers. So, if you enjoyed today's topic, hey man, do me a favor, guys. Hit that subscribe button. I would love to add you to the community. Just need you to subscribe to do that. To my OG subscribers, here, you know what I'm going to ask you to do, guys. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash that like button. Help me spike the algorithm and get this in front of new people that we could potentially convert into our little community here on YouTube. All right, y'all. Miles Sanders is today's topic. And this is a tough one because generally speaking, guys, I'm going to root for anybody that dons that Eagles jersey. I don't care what my beliefs are in terms of how successful they can or cannot be. When they don the Eagles jersey, I'm hoping for the best out on the field. And this guy, Miles looks like he's going to be a starter on this 2022 NFL, or this Philadelphia Eagles football team. So, I wanted to do some digging today because I didn't want to just do a basic video about is he going to get 1,000 yards or not. I mean, sure, that's the heart of today's video. Is can Miles Sanders actually rush for 1,000 yards? But I also wanted to add some context, guys. I wanted to take a look over league averages. I wanted to take a look over, Eagles history, and then kind of get a feel for what can Miles Sanders do. Like, it's one thing to say, can he get it? But, like, how do you move from being a 700 to 800 yard guy into being 1,000 yard rusher? And that's the heart of today's topic, which is, let's take a look at Miles. I would say that most of us, I'm not going to say everybody, but most of us will come to a consensus over one point, which is, look, Miles Sanders is explosive. He can hit the home run ball on you. Like, this guy can definitely gash you for a big-time run. Now, I think there's a more nuanced argument to this discussion, but when you look at runs over 50 yards, which is highly subjective, I'm here to admit that, guys. I mean, hey, why didn't you do runs over 25 yards? Why didn't you do runs over 60 yards? Why didn't you do runs over 70 yards? I chose 50 yards, guys. All right? I don't know. I chose 50 yards. That's the number I chose. But when I broke it down over runs over 50 yards, okay, LaShawn McCoy leads all Philadelphia Eagles running backs since 1994. You might be asking why 94? That leaves out like Wilbur Montgomery and Van Buren, a lot of other Eagle greats. I get it, guys. I wasn't alive for Van Buren, and I highly doubt most of us watching this video were. But some of you guys were definitely around for Wilbur Montgomery. StatHead only tracks to 1994, guys. It's nothing I can do about that. However, since 1994, LaShawn McCoy has had 7 runs over 50 yards for over 400 yards, 404 to be exact, 3 touchdowns and 6 first downs. The number 2 guy on that list is Miles Sanders with 5 for 351, 3 touchdowns, and then 5 first downs. The number 3 guy is Brian Westbrook, 4 runs over 50 yards, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 first downs. Okay, so right away we have the conversation about Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, and now we're talking about Miles Sanders. So when we talk about explosive play rate, I already think that you have to be fair and you have to be balanced in how you're analyzing this because Miles Sanders belongs in the discussion. He has been one of the more explosive backs the Philadelphia Eagles have had in, pretty much close to the last 30 years, okay? The rest of that list, just so you guys have the names, okay, for plays above 50. The 4th ranked backs it's a tie between Deuce Staley and Ricky Watters. They both had 3 runs over 50 yards. And then Bryce Brown and Michael Vick tied at 2 apiece over 50 yards. And these are the only players since 1994 to have more than 1 run over 50 yards for the Philadelphia Eagles. LaShawn McCoy, Miles Sanders, Brian Westbrook, Deuce Staley, Ricky Watters, Bryce Brown, and Michael Vick. I will say the one interesting fact here, or kind of like I would have lost money on a bet if someone asked me this, Charlie Garner only had 1, accounting from 94 forward, which I would have thought Charlie Garner had more than that as an Eagle. Mind you, we're talking about as a Philadelphia Eagle specifically. I didn't do Garner's entire career. I searched by Eagles for the duration of the database and then plays above 50 yards on running plays. So, interesting. Nonetheless, I will point this out. 5 plays, yeah, that's cool, man. But 5 plays out of the 480 rushing attempts he's had over his career That's like a little over 1%, guys. A little bit over 1% of the, touches he receives goes over 50 yards. Can't hang your hat on that, right? I mean, it's cool. We know the guy's explosive. We know 3 of those 5 came in one single season, which was in 2020. So maybe getting back to form and we can see what this guy can do. Maybe we're underselling how explosive he can be. But I don't think this is the greatest stat to judge explosive play rate from the running backs, to be honest. I kind of look towards what the coaching staff does. Our coaching staff right now, one of their major concerns is winning the turnover battle and then winning the explosive play rate. That's 2 of their main focuses. And they define explosive play rate, as I remember it, by running backs over 12 yards, receivers, I believe, is over 25, or 20 or 25, somewhere in that area, guys. So I went back and I said, okay, how does like PFF and all these other databases, how do they measure it? They measure plays above 15 yards. So I went into StatHead. StatHead's run by Pro Football Reference, guys. And underneath StatHead, I went ahead and I filtered by plays above 15 yards. And this is what I came out with Philadelphia Eagles since 1994 and how they rank. There's 2 ways of looking at this. You can look at this by the yards they gained or the amount of runs they had above 15 yards. I went with purely the physical number, the number of runs above 15 yards. So Brian Westbrook is number 1 with 93 runs above 15 yards. LaShawn McCoy is number 2 with 88. Donovan McNabb is 3 with 71. Deuce Staley is 4 with 55. And then you got a 4-way tie in 5th place between Ricky Waters, Michael Vick, Charlie Garner, and Correll Buckhalter. All those guys together had 32 runs above 15 yards. And then you sit here and you look at a guy like Miles Sanders, who ranks now 9th. He had 25 runs above 15 yards. So, top 10 just to round it out is Ryan Matthews. So, to kind of talk about this, he's got big playability. I don't think that's ever been a legitimate question by most of us here in the community. We know that Miles Sanders has got some shape to him, man. Like, Miles can put a defender on roller skates out there, man. He can make you look goofy. He can make you look stupid out there, right? That's not what we're concerned about with Miles Sanders, man. I trust Miles Sanders' ability to, at any point in the game, change the fortune of a play. I mean, the guy he's got that ability. There's no doubt about that. But what I do want to point out is although Miles Sanders is very explosive, even a guy as explosive as Miles Sanders, we're talking about 25 plays out of the 480 total rushing attempts he has in his career. So what we're really talking about is 19.2%. Put another way, roughly 1 in every 5 carries goes above 15 yards for Miles Sanders. I think the question we must ask ourselves for this 2022 football team is, sure, we want Miles to be explosive, but is it more pertinent for Miles Sanders to maybe buy into what the defense gives him, maybe read and judge those holes, right? Try to keep the timing and the rhythm of the offense on schedule as opposed to looking for those shots. Let those shots come to you naturally instead of trying to force them. I think that's the really big question here, guys. And to be fair, I'm not a running back. Most of my career has been spent either playing or coaching quarterbacks or receivers and corners. I'm not really a running back guy. But I will say that I had the opportunity to have 2 former collegiate football players come on my channel and break down film with me. And Caleb, appreciate you, buddy, and Jalen Williams. And both of these guys came in with a consensus viewpoint about that playoff game in Tampa Bay. And they said if Miles Sanders had only taken what the defense gave him, there's more meat on the bone. Did he go to the wrong hole in this play?
Yes and no. The reason why I say that is because if the play is hidden right, he's going to the right hole. But if he's patient, he's reading things right, he's allowing the play to develop, he would have cut back.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to knock Miles. This is not me trying to bash Miles Sanders. I want the best for this young man. I want this young man to go out there and ball this year. But I know these 2 guys know the position. I know these 2 guys know a thing or two about blocking schemes. I know these guys, and one play in particular, really criticized Miles Sanders for not looking for that cutoff lane, the backside cutoff lane. They complimented Lane Johnson for really climbing up to the second level and cutting it off. So there was a cutback lane on one of those plays that would have been a major gain if Miles saw it. And I do think that, Miles, in some ways, he's trying to reach that. He's trying to get to that ability. I mean, he's talked about it, in his pressers about, hey, man, like, I've been working on my lower half. I think he wants to be a more situational football player, right? I don't mean that like he's only a situational guy. I mean, a guy you don't remove based upon the situation. So I think he wants to be a guy that can go get you those third down and shorts, who can be a guy that can go get you a rough yard or two on the goal line, right? I think he wants to be a guy that can anchor and help you in pass protection. He can do pass pro as a running back on third down. I think he wants to be that guy that can have dependable hands that can make a catch or two for you when you need it. I think that's the thing that's going to really determine it, because when I look over Miles Sanders, the underlying data, the analytics, they're not bad. I'm just going to be honest, guys. He's been active or on the roster for 40 games. Of those 40 games, he started 34. His career rushing attempts are 480. His rushing yards per attempt is 5.1, which is a really good marker. His rushing yards per game is 61, which is fair. And then his rushes per attempts per game is 12. So he gets, generally speaking, 12 attempts per game on average as a as a rusher. Not as a running back, but as a rusher, if you will. Then you look at his yards per touch. So this includes your receiving ability. It's about 5.7. I wanted to compare that to two of the top backs in the NFL just to have a side-by-side comparison of the production from Miles Sanders. And this is what I got here. Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb. I want to take a look at these guys, AFC guys, right? We can all make the argument that Miles Sanders is not the type of running back that Jonathan Taylor or Nick Chubb are. These are different types of backs, and I 100% agree. I'm just judging production, not necessarily role and feature in the offense, per se. But Jonathan Taylor has been active for 32 games where Miles was 40, but he started 30 games where Miles started 34. So similar bodies, sample year size. He's had 564 rushes to Miles Sanders' 480, so a little bit more. Almost 100 more, rushing attempts over Miles. Of those 564 rushing attempts, he's had 39 go for 15 yards or more, so that's a big play rate of 14.46, but another way, 14.5%. Just for recall, Miles had a 19.2% big play rate. His rushing yards per attempt, we're talking about Jonathan Taylor, guys, is 5.3. Miles Sanders was 5.1. His rushing yards per game is 93.1. Right? Jonathan Taylor is doing his thing, guys. Rushing attempts per game, this is shocking, guys, 17.6. I'm going to round that up and say, on average, 18 a game. I thought he'd be over 20. I was a little shocked to see Jonathan Taylor's under 20. And then his yards per touch, stride for stride with Miles Sanders, 5.7, so when you factor in receiving as well. 5.7 yards per complete touch, whether it's running or receiving, catching the football. Nick Chubb, active for 58 games, started 51. He's got a bigger sample size, a bigger body of work compared to Miles Sanders and Jonathan Taylor. He's got 908 rushes, so pretty much he's basically doubled Miles Sanders' attempts. Of those 908 rushing attempts, he's had 71 go for 15 yards or more. That works its way out to a 12.79%. I'm just going to round that and say 13% for ease here. 13% big play rate for Nick Chubb. His rushing yards per attempt is 5.3. His rushing yards per game are 83. And his rushing attempts per game is 15.7. Put another way, he gets about 16, rushing attempts per game on average. So if you rank these guys, in terms of rushing attempts, it would go Jonathan Taylor's 18 per game. Then you got Nick Chubb 16 per game. You got Miles Sanders 12 per game. All these guys are under 20 touches a game on average. And then if you look at yards per touch, so total yards per touch, whether it's through running the football or whether it's through basically catching the football, when you look at Nick Chubb, it's 5.6 yards. Miles Sanders was 5.7. Jonathan Taylor's was 5.7. Nick Chubb's was 5.6. From purely a just total viewpoint of production, okay, Miles Sanders he's up there, guys. He is producing when on the field. But I'm not calling you guys crazy for saying that something's still missing. We talked about the situational stuff that's got to improve. But I want to go into a little deeper than that, right? We know situationally he's got to be better in pass protection. He's got to be better catching the football, right? He's got to be better in short yard situations and goal lines, all that stuff. Absolutely. But also, he's just got to be healthy. You remember the old saying, guys, the best ability is availability. Talk about giving away the punchline. Simply put, man, if you only average 12, games a year, it's going to be really hard for you to get above about 160 carries. I'm of the belief that Miles Sanders should get about between 185 to maybe just a little over 210. Not above 250, guys. I think 250 is asking a lot for the body frame. if you can keep him between 185 and about 205, 210 carries a season, I think Miles Sanders could have a 1,000-yard season. But he has to be healthy and available to do that. And that's not something that it's hard to predict that, guys. Like, I'm not too sure that's a player's fault for injuries. Like, it's just really difficult to say that. I don't know the guy's, rest and recovery routine. I don't know the guy's nutrition. I don't know any of that. I mean, the guy looks like he's in shape to me. I mean, what do I know about that, guys? I can't tell you that. What I can say, though, is that it's vital. Because even at 12 attempts per game, if he's just healthy for all 17 games, guys, right there, he's over 200 rushing attempts on the season. My estimate at 5.1 rushing yards per attempt. You're a 1,000-yard rusher at that point, guys. He's gonna go above his consistency of that 7 to 800 rushing yards per season. He should uptick to 1,000 yards just off of that alone. We'll see, guys. This is a complex conversation because we haven't even really approached the topic of the fact that, look, Jalen Hurts is going to complement the running game. There's just no doubt about that, right? You got guys like Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell is going to play a role in this running game. There are some extenuating circumstances to this, no doubt about it. But I'm going to flip the question to you to end the video. Where are you at? Miles Sanders, 1,000-yard rusher or not, guys? I think if he just stays healthy, he just averages 12 a game, 12 attempts, 60 yards a game, he's going to eclipse it if he can just stay on the field, right? All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys. I'll see y'all in the next video.